Okay. Okay, you could start the meeting whenever. We're live.
All righty. Everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, justice for all.
Okay, roll call. I believe everybody is here.
So I would do a roll call though.
Rick Schwartz.
Here.
Tim Sweet.
Here.
Michael Girardi.
Here.
Bob Christoph.
Here.
Everybody's present.
Okay. If we have any citizens out there that are in here, any comments?
Doesn't look like there's any citizens, Tim, that joined us on the page here.
Okay. Then we'll have the chief's report.
Can't hear you, Mike.
Sorry about that. It'll take me 1 minute to get to it if you want to go to something else and come back to me, or unless you have it, Rick.
Actually, I do, before I ran out of ink. This month, 5 arrests. Adults, that's what it says. Let's say 74 events. 1 impound, 8 on 12 cases. And I'm showing 1 citation. That sound right?
I thought there was like 7 citations or something like that, but that's close.
Okay.
This is showing 1.
If it's on there 1, then that's what we have is 1.
Okay, well, that's what it says.
We probably have some that aren't documented because we couldn't turn them in.
Well, granted, it's going to be low because you guys are not, just like everybody else, where you're limiting interaction, I'm assuming.
Correct.
Okay.
The court just opened up today and started accepting criminal complaints and citations.
Okay.
That'll-
There's our chief's report. Moving on, general office.
No report.
Yeah,
I'll make-
general office. General office has no report. Can we move on to budget and finances?
Well, while
We
we're
have
there, if you want, I can go ahead and I can make a motion to approve the April 2020 minutes that Beth had sent out.
Second,
Second.
I have no additional comment. They looked accurate to me, so I think we're good if we just want to vote on it.
aye.
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 Motion passes. Move on to budget and finances.
Everyone should have received a copy of the bill list that Beth had sent out. She sent out an updated one, which is in addition to the one that we had previously done, or she had previously sent out. So if you want, though, it's just for the sake of everything, I'll quickly summarize it. So it's the unpaid bills as of May 11th, 2020 for advanced auto parts, total of $24.49. Bearcom, $192.60. Boat checks, $1,810.19. David Rogoli, $798. Essential Technical Solutions, 2,250. Reimbursement to chief, $36.26. Bolero Services, $129.84. And Wex Bank, $780.36 for a total of $6,021.74. So I'll make a motion to go ahead and approve the bill list.
I'll
I'll
second.
second that.
I have
Okay.
nothing else. I think we can vote.
All righty, moving on.
Well, we have to actually vote
Operations
on it.
Committee.
I don't think
You
we
need
voted
to
on it.
vote, call the vote on that. I don't
There's
think
a
you guys
motion.
voted on that, did you?
We
No.
did not.
Okay,
So aye.
Aye.
aye,
Aye.
So that's all I have for
Motion
budget and
carries.
finance. That's all I have
Okay,
for
motion
budget and
carries.
finance. There's a few other things that we'll discuss later on in new business.
Can I make one comment on that, on the bill list?
Sure, Mike.
There was a bill on there for Bearcom. I'm going to be calling them. That's for our 800 radios that we talked to New Ken with. I'm going to talk to them. We've had those radios for quite a few years, and I want to see what they're still including with that cost still. Because that was like warranty work that if they ever broke, we can get them fixed. So I'll be following up on that bill.
Okay.
okay.
Anything else?
Motion carries. Operations Committee.
A couple things. I'm not sure exactly where they fall. One, we had a question, and I had talked to David about how to handle it, and that was with the virus and other things going on. Who would take over should the chief not be able to? And I understand we can have a motion, say in a chain of command. And I was hoping to kind of roll into that motion, and I got to find out if this is okay or not. A title with it, like acting corporal. I know that we have to test for the position of a permanent corporal, but I'm under the understanding that we can make an acting without the test. And as we go into our contract negotiations, create the position and go from there, anything that it's going to entail. But in the meantime, that would be, until we have a sergeant, that would be the chain of command. That would replace the chief. So I'm not sure where to go, if I can do that, if it just has to say chain of command, if it can say acting. And our other full-time officer, we only have one. That would be Craig.
So Rick, just to summarize, I guess what you're suggesting is that we would be elevating Craig to an active corporal position or acting corporal position to clarify the chain of command in anticipation that Mike may become incapable of performing his services because of COVID-19, and then also recognizing the possibility that while we're dealing with this situation, which may be ongoing for who knows how long, we might find ourselves having an additional full-time officer. So just to clarify everything.
Yeah, right now, we have nothing formal. And I think we should put something formal. And I think eventually when we do create the permanent position of corporal and sergeant, if we so choose to, we would do that in the negotiations, the current contract. And my thought was there's also a sergeant's position, and we would be holding that position for the next department that comes in, there will be another chief, and the sergeant would definitely be a supervisory position. And we would put one chief there and have a chief and a sergeant. But right now, the main thing would be to make Craig the acting one and have that chain of command.
You don't have the position. You don't have an acting position. You'd have to create that position.
Well, can we create an acting position?
I didn't see anything in the civil service rules that say you could, but I didn't see anything in the civil service rules that say you couldn't either. When I read them last week when we were going back and forth with those email exchanges regarding the position, I had suggested that I thought the cleanest way to do it was that if the chief's not there, the next full-time officer is your officer in charge. Isn't that the way it runs now?
I think in practice, but I'm not sure if there's anything official behind that.
My thought in this was to, the one thing that we're trying to do, and we are starting to get a little bit recognized, is just make it a little more professional and give the officers some recognition. If you're going to put them in a possible temporary supervisor, if you can't do it, you can't do it. I just, right now, because there is no permanent position other than title, that's all it's going to be.
Right. I think what you have to do, honestly, is you'd have to create the position of corporal, and then you would have to, appoint him acting corporal, but you're still gonna have to follow the civil service rules. I don't know I don't know what the difference between an acting and the corporal would be.
Well, yeah,
other than it's temporary.
Yeah, it's temporary. You don't, at least the way I understood it, you don't have to test for the acting. That's just a fill-in. And when we create the permanent position, you would have to test for it. But that was my understanding.
Well, I didn't see anything that said that you couldn't, so.
Well, David, what would it take for us to actually create that position? Is there anything that we have to do behind us saying we're making it, or? I looked
in your charter, and the only position you have is basically the chief. And in the civil service code, it authorizes the position of a sergeant. I think you can create it. I mean, we just do a resolution creating the position of corporal, and we could do that by way of resolution. I don't see why you couldn't do that. I mean, I've been involved in other departments where they've had lieutenants and sergeants. I never saw a corporal position before.
Oh, we got to start somewhere. We're small, and I don't know. I just say even just until we do something with it in the new contract, it's a little recognition.
Is there some specific definition of corporal, David? Just bouncing different names. Is there any specific definition of corporal?
Are you talking to me, Bob?
Yes.
Is there some? No. It's just another position. My understanding is it's a lower position than the sergeant's position, right? You're trying to keep that sergeant position open. see. I'm just flipping through this real quick again.
Well, if the intent is that we want to have a series of positions, one to elevate the individual that be more or less in charge to Southampton Mike in the short term, but also have spots potentially available for other leadership positions that may come from other municipalities. You know, I think there's a range of terms that we can use, whether it's sergeant, lieutenant, captain, chief. I mean, I'm not aware of any specific requirement of what needs to be had for any one of those. In principle, I'm okay with the idea. So if the titles are just whatever we claim them to be, then you know, I think we pick the titles that we want.
Are you going to create a pay grade for that position?
Right now, my thought was, because we're in negotiations, all that would be discussed. But until we have, negotiations are done and there are other possible departments or positions, that would be the progression even after the contract was done.
Your contract or your charter in Article 10 limits you to 2 full-time officers unless both municipalities change it.
Yes.
And it's basically the chief and one other officer. It doesn't specify what that officer what his rank is, just says officer.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was hoping that at this meeting we could put together a committee for negotiations and have that committee possibly come up with a initial proposal, and then have the board meet again in the next couple of weeks to kind of go over the proposal in executive session before it's presented to the officers, since we haven't really had a chance to get into it too much. And hopefully by that point we might be able to meet in person. So if we can't have an answer now, and if you're telling us it needs to be done by resolution, but we don't have everything documented and put together, perhaps we can try to work on those at the same time. And I mean, with Rick's idea, I think it's the idea that we would need to go with to, one, take care of the individuals that we have, but two, also set ourselves up to be able to grow.
My question is now, because obviously Mike can't be there all the time. If someone, when you go on vacation, how's that handled? How was it handled?
Typically, I was just on call, and I would have a laptop and my cell phone when I'm on vacation.
Okay, so there was never anything in place that if you were unable to perform your duty.
No, there was not.
Well, what about we have a motion and you make it there, have it say that it goes by the full-time officer, and at that point in time be promoted the acting corporal. If you've never done it, there isn't, I guess everything's wide open in terms of if you were gonna give someone even the smallest stipend to take the position. He doesn't become acting corporal unless he's promoted until we create the position. I mean, I'm kind of grabbing here. I'm not sure exactly how to go. I mean, I just figured we could just give him a bone, make him acting corporal. Would there be any benefit to the chief, you having someone, or is it just in name only right now, reward?
Would it benefit me to have somebody? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah,
Yes, it would be benefit because I can assign him more job duties that relieves it of me.
Yeah, I'm not very happy to hear the idea that when you go on vacation, Mike, you got to take stuff with you and be on call. I mean, at the end of the day, something might eventually happen of such significance that it does require you to be called. But I would prefer, given the line of work that you're in, that when you're not working, you have the chance to unwind as much as possible. And not having to have a phone and a laptop with you would be certainly beneficial.
It would be more than beneficial to me. I mean, plus I can make, like for certain, it's hard to assign a guy to do more work when he has the same title as, for instance, a part-time officer.
Do you have in mind what type of work that may be? I mean, I don't need to have an answer right now, but if we said, hey, Mike, give us a list of what you'd want this position to do, could you come up with that?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I think what we would need to do then is we get that, we take a look at what that entails to come up with, and that would generally be along the lines of an idea of a description of what that position is to do. We come up with a stipend or some type of pay increase based upon that. And then we see exactly what would be required from our civil service to create that position. And then if we're able to appoint someone acting to that spot in the interim while we hash out everything else.
Yeah, that makes sense. We just do initially what David said and just make the officer, full-time officer, the next line of progression. For the time being, we have a motion, we have it clean, and we'll come back next meeting with the chief's recommendations for the position.
And you also need to decide if you're going to create like a pay, what pay grade that would be, or if there's going to be like a shift differential. If he's doing more than an officer on duty, most places then have you get stepped up, whether it's 25 cents an hour, 50 cents an hour, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I know the sergeants always get that in most places.
Okay. Well, so, I mean, just to help try to keep everything moving along. So I think the idea is we'll work to come up with essentially the description of duties, pay increase, and then the necessary resolution that we would have to adopt, get that done. So at our next meeting, we're able to approve that. And in the interims, are we able to specify, just to clarify the chain of command, that should something happen to Mike in the interim, that it would be the other full-time officer would assume responsibility?
Yes, I think you can do that.
Okay.
Okay. Would it be the best way to say it then?
That someone would make a motion that the other full-time officer would be the officer in charge if the chief is unavailable for any reason. Because you only have one full-time officer.
Okay.
That would be your motion.
You get that, Beth?
Yep.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
I'm all for it. you want to go ahead and have the vote?
Aye.
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 Then the,
Motion passes.
the other thing that I had asked the chief, basically information on the current department, other than our full-time officer. Based on what we're looking at doing somewhere in the future about adding another full-time position. And I just asked that to be sent to everyone. It was not at this point to act on anything, because I know that the first thing that we would have to do, I guess, to act on it would be we'd have to send a motion to the two municipalities. Would we have to do that whenever we decided we were interested in doing it, or
I mean, expanding,
if
I mean, adding another officer?
if we were looking at hiring another full-time position? And the reason that I became interested in this is the fact that the pool for part-time officers is drying up, and departments are cannibalizing from other departments. And if we lose one of our officers now, we might not replace him. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, but the academy right now is shut down. So we don't have any new pool of even part-time. So I think we've got to start looking into it.
That would all depend on finances.
Well, that's
We'd have to look into that.
Yeah, that's. I mean, we had some.
I can tell you that when I did the budget for this current fiscal year, the costs to run the municipality, or I'm sorry, to run the police department with an additional full-time officer would actually be less expensive than with part-timers, because it would reduce the amount of overtime that we're looking at. And under the current agreement, if someone hired in a full-time position would not receive the full rate of pay. There's a period of time where they'd have to be kind of on a probationary period. So from a financial perspective, at least at the end of the year, we're not really looking at any impact. Anything beyond that's going to be dependent upon whatever is negotiated with the during the negotiations.
Well, I guess my question.
Well, if I could, I'd like to see them numbers, but I'm very far advanced in the thought of it.
Okay.
I think that would be a very good thing to do.
I
I'd like to see the whole police department full.
I didn't know that the figures are that workable, Michael. That's good to hear.
Yeah, I mean, it's not we're talking of between the two options. It's like a $1,000 or $2 difference. It's not remarkable, but I mean, it does say something that it would be actually more cost effective for us to have an additional full-timer at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Tim, I can get you over those. I have them somewhere. The various budgets that we put together, and I can get those over.
All righty, I'd like to see them, but I do believe that that would keep our officers in check. That would keep them interested in our venture here. Yeah,
and certainly the numbers that I put together were not assuming the loss of any additional part-timers. I was able to. So this was put together in October last year, and I was able to pull on historic records in terms of how much overtime we were working, and I was able to project forward then what our costs would be with that amount of overtime. I did not include if we had lost a part-timer and had to have more overtime because of that. So, without anything changing, if we were just changing the title of somebody, the cost would slightly go down. But if we found ourselves in a position where we lost someone and not being able to replace them, the comparison would be much greater. Or the difference would be much greater.
Yeah.
Well, I guess my question is then, we have to have agreement from both municipalities. Is there a process, or should we think about how we're gonna define the process of letting the other municipalities know, whether we put a motion, we send a letter, we put stuff together? I mean, I'm not saying do it now, I'm saying we should be thinking about it now.
I think it would be appropriate for us to put something together, a letter of some type saying that we're asking for for them to allow us to hire a full-timer and explain and give our reasons, both concerns regarding manpower and then also the potential financial concerns as well. So they're able to evaluate and then vote as they need to.
I have the numbers that we pay a month. Do you want to hear them? Comparison?
You sure?
Cheswick in the borough right now for 2 officers is $19,758 and 24 cents. For 3 full-time officers, it would be $18,743.33. So it's roughly around $1,000 that you're saving.
Is that including the insurance and everything?
That's what the 2 townships pay.
Tim, that would have been through the end of 2020.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let's really look into it. I think that would be a good thing to look into.
And I think it would show our officers that we are interested, and hopefully they want to progress and stay with us.
Well, then, to kind of maybe show the seriousness to our officers, might I suggest that we, we have a motion that says essentially maybe myself from a financial perspective and Rick from an operation perspective, we work on coming up with then that what would be providing to the municipalities, the explanation why we need to do this. That way we're moving forward on it, and 2, it's an affirmative action from our end to take a step towards going to that line that may provide some assurance to our officers that this is where we're intending on going.
I'm okay with that. Does that sound okay, David?
Yeah,
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right.
Well, then I want to make a motion that we form a 3rd full-time officer committee comprised of myself and Rick for the purpose of evaluating and coming up with a proposal for the addition of a 3rd-time officer.
I'll second that.
I think we can vote.
Aye.
Yes.
Okay. Well, good.
That's all I have.
All right. Move on to new business.
Yes. So we had received
the
some.
discussion.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
We had received some money
Go
in
ahead.
a grant from the Brian Shaw Foundation, and also that little girl from the township that's raising some money. And while we're not necessarily in a position right now to make that purchase, Beth had asked, and I think it's something we need to consider. What should we do with those funds? Should we set them aside in a separate account, or should we lump it together perhaps in that already special account that we have that's for the grant money that we received from the state?
you should probably segregate it, because if you don't end up doing it, you're gonna have to give it back.
Okay. Then I want to make a motion authorizing Beth to establish a separate account to handle the grant money that we received, donation money that we received for the K-9.
Second.
Yes.
Okay. Let's have.
I'm gonna need I'm just gonna need sorry. I'm gonna need a letter to send to the bank that you guys approve that.
Okay. All right, I'll also make a motion to authorize us issuing such a letter.
I-
Just add it to the motion. Sure.
All one motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
One question. Did I miss something there? The funds can only be used to purchase another dog, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make
That's
sure.
what the Shaw Foundation is.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, sorry.
Maybe we could wake Jackie up and ask her.
Oh, yeah. Do they have restriction on the amount? Is that what you're asking?
No, the money can only be used to purchase the dog, right?
Well, my understanding of the money and the amount that they came down with was to cover the cost of a dog and training of the dog. So I think it was discussed with Chief whenever the check was given to him. He asserted that he's not going to need to go to training. The officer who received the canine in New Kensington did, because he had never handled a canine before. So I think it was agreed upon that any additional money that would be left over after the purchase of the dog, he could use for expenses related to the dog.
Correct, and that's what my understanding was too.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Well, okay, so we approve that account then. The next issue that we have is that we've already received the first renewal forms for insurance. Since we began July 1, all of our policies go through July 1. The first is the health insurance for the officers. I think Beth had emailed out all the information, but more or less the quick summation is that we're paying about $1,100 a month now for both of the officers, and the increase would go up to, with the same plan, $1,286.64. While that is a fair increase of about 20%, we did budget for the last 6 months of the year an amount of $1,368.57. So we're actually coming in under budget on that health insurance. So, I think the guys have a good policy, and I think they need it, and we're coming in under budget. So my recommendation is that we would approve the insurance policy, the renewal policy that we received.
What was, I'll second it so I can ask a question.
All right, so I'm making that motion that we approve the renewal of the health insurance policy for the same as what we had previously, except for in the amount of $1,286.64 for both officers combined.
All right,
month.
Rick seconded it. And all in favor?
I got a question.
He has a question.
Steve, and I could be wrong. Did I see somewhere where I thought you were recommending we get bids, or was that a different policy?
Well, I'm going to recommend that we also make sure at this time, so for all the other insurance policies we carry, I was going to ask for another motion that we
Gotcha.
go ahead and start procuring those.
Yeah. All right. I just want to make sure I didn't know which one it referred to.
No, the health insurance one already came through. And again, it's a rate that's it's an increase that's less than what we had budgeted. So I think we're okay.
Okay. All right. My second stands.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any questions on the motion? All right, moving on.
And then the last one there is a motion that, again, as I had just stated, that all of our insurance policies, whether it's the various liability insurance, workman's comp or whatnot, those were effective July 1, 2019, will expire June 30th of 2020. So we need to begin getting quotes on those so we can adopt and approve the various policies in our June meeting. So I want to make a motion authorizing the Budget and Finance Committee to procure quotes for the various insurance policies that we maintain.
There's a motion on the floor. All in favor?
We didn't get a second.
Second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any questions on the motion? Okay, moving on. Old business.
Well, I have something, it's not necessarily, I guess it'd be on more under new business, but I mean, we kind of already hit on it. So we're going to need to begin the negotiation process for a new labor contract since it expired, the current one expires in March of next year. And so we can accurately budget, we need to know what the various costs are going to be. So I'm going to ask that we formulate a negotiation committee to come up with a proposal that we can then take to the officers. So I want to make a motion, we formulate a negotiation committee for the purpose of negotiating a new bargaining agreement.
You want it to be named later, to be named now, or what?
I mean, I'm more than happy to be on it, so I don't know if anybody else is interested in joining.
I think it should be a representative from each community. And since you and Tim are both on your respective boards, I think you should be the committee.
Okay.
So
Tim,
if Tim's okay with that,
I'm okay with that.
okay, well then, so I'll modify that. So again, I want to reiterate, I want to make a motion that we formulate a negotiation committee for the purpose of negotiating a new labor contract with the members comprised of myself and Tim. That's the end of the motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay.
All those in favor? Aye.
aye.
Yes.
Okay. And I'm sorry, then the last thing I wanted to quickly discuss was that I would like for us to put together some type of policy regarding the requests that may come from the municipalities regarding the performance of non-emergency services by our department. My concern is that as time goes on,
Everybody.
I'm sorry, can you hear me? Okay. My
Hello.
concern, Tim, you there? Can anybody else hear Tim?
I can't hear Tim anymore.
Okay, it sounds like he was popping in and out.
It looks like he went offline.
Okay. Well, again, hopefully he can come back. But generally, my idea would be that I don't, we have 7 elected officials, 7 council members in Chesapeake plus the mayor. So we have 8 elected officials down there. There's 5 in the township. There's the 4 of us. That's a heck of a lot of people that might be potentially directing Mike to perform, or Mike and the officers to perform services. In particular, again, I'm looking at non-emergency services. If it's emergency, they're going to do what they need to do, and they're not. I'm pretty sure Mike's not going to listen to what I got to tell them under those circumstances. But generally, I would want to make sure that if we're dealing with non-emergency services, if there's some type of request that needs to be done, we come up with a policy to clarify for our officers that this is the policy, or this is what should be done, or this is an actual request. I would hate for one individual elected official from either municipality to make a request to Mike, with that request maybe does not have the full support. Mike, relying upon that, performs it, and then we find ourselves in a little bit of hot water because we didn't do something that was generally required. So I was hoping that we could come up with some type of policy clarifying that if one of our municipalities would like us to perform some type of service, whether it's blocking off parking on a street for a period of time, or maybe shutting down a road, or
Yeah, we have a little
like
situation around Christmas, Michael, for Santa. And I think that the rec board or somebody can service
There
directly.
you are.
Yeah. So I think there might be a little bit of a difference if we're requesting a special detail, but if we're not looking for a special detail, but again, maybe closing down a road temporarily, having no parking, or anything else like that that I might not be thinking of, that it's clear to Mike that this is what we should be doing. So my idea, we would have a policy in place that any request for a emergency related service would either need to come from one of the commissioners on this board from the respective municipality, or something coming from the president of the municipality signed by the president and the secretary.
I
So
thought
without
we,
it,
I thought we had with the I thought we had talked about that when we first formed, and everything went through the chair, so the chief didn't have four of us telling him different things for the municipalities. I mean, I thought we had that policy already. Am I wrong?
I think it was more from the, I'm recalling that now, Rick, I think it was more from the idea of regarding the actual board itself, if we're going to be instructing something. But I think the idea more would be, you know, if someone from Cheswick is the chair and the Springdale Township wants something done, that the Springdale Township could go to one of their own representatives who can then just talk to Mike and say, hey, we're asking that you might do this. It's not a full command, because Mike could evaluate the situation and say, no, I'm not doing it. It's a little bit different than if it's coming from our chair. So I think it was internally versus potentially from our municipalities that we want to be responsive to.
Well, still, that's why I thought we had, if one municipality had the chair, the other municipality had the vice chair, so that's in place. I mean, it doesn't matter to me if we need a formal.
I'm more looking to make sure it's clear to the elected officials from the municipality. So for instance, from Cheswick, since we got 8 elected officials, that it's clear that if they want something done, that they don't just call Mike up on the phone and ask him to do it.
Well, no, I don't think that should happen.
Right. So I want to make sure it's clear that under those circumstances, Mike is in a position to say, this is not what I'm doing. I need to hear it from somebody else. So maybe we should do, Rick, is let's go back and take a look at whatever it is we had previously adopted and see if we need to clarify anything on that.
Yeah, because I believe that we have a chair and a vice chair, and if I have something that I'm interested in, I would go through one of you two.
Okay. Then let me take a look again what we had before, because quite honestly, I totally forgot about that, Rick. And then perhaps, if necessary, have a recommendation then at the next meeting.
Well, I agree with you. If we're getting requests from the municipalities, you have the potential of, 12 people telling the chief what to do.
Yeah. Okay. But that's all I have.
And I missed it.
The idea is we want to make sure it's clear that if one of our municipalities wants the police department to do something, that there's a clear chain in terms of how that's related to the officers. The idea is we got 12 elected officials from Cheswick and Springdale Township. We don't want Mike getting called from 12 different people telling him to do things.
This is correct.
Yeah.
Fully agree.
I don't have anything else then.
That's everything in old business. I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Second.
Aye.
All those in favor say aye.
Hey.
Aye. Okay. All right, everyone then.
All right, I'll get with you, Mike, on